This week on Theater Talk.
We had kinder.
Well, we brought in the first thing, children. It kept us together. I mean, they always say, yeah, that's like a big
Don't lay it
joke.
on
No.
them.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation.
If steroids made you a better actor, wouldn't you take steroids?
But I wouldn't be brought in front of a congressional committee. If you can make people laugh, they say, give them a steroid.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm the show's producer, Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
Michael, we have Stiller and Meara back. I am so
We
happy.
did. We
Yes.
had the great comedy team of Ann, Meara, and Jerry Stiller on last week. We were having so much fun with them. When we just began to get into their lives, we invited them back for another week. And they stayed in the studio all week long.
We did. We're very happy to be here. A week older.
Didn't have to
And-
change our clothes.
No.
No.
We fed you and provided for you okay for the week.
Absolutely, and we made out a little too, didn't we?
And Meara, Jerry Stiller of famous comedy team Stiller and Meara, but also a significant careers in the theaters, which we're going to talk about in this segment of the show. But first, I do want to ask you, as we closed last week, you mentioned your son has gotten you onto the web. You have you're doing webcasting
We have
now.
a webisode, I guess that's what you call it, and it is www.stillerandmeara.com. No spaces between any of those things I just said. Like I know what I'm talking about.
So what do you sit in front of the camera and chat away?
We pick a subject that's happening in the near future, which is coming up, and then we start to. The best way I can put it is really talk about it without preparing, without scripting.
The
so it's all extemporaneous.
We pick the subject,
Yeah.
but the other stuff is improvised.
Do you talk
around.
about politics?
We didn't get into politics yet, did we?
We didn't touch on politics. We're thinking about it, and the question in our mind right now is with the political scene right now, which is changing. We were on Jon Stewart's show.
I saw you.
So here we were, whether we liked it or not.
We
And I
filmed
did-
that with Wyatt Cenac.
Yeah, and we were getting ready for the March for Sanity.
Yes.
At least Wyatt had made some new friends.
There's no such thing as a free ride in this world.
I'm going to pass, if that's okay.
No, it's not okay.
Get out of here.
You, Wyatt.
The only way I felt I could be connected in some positive way about politics was to be on that show. I don't know how Ann felt about it. I was so happy that he put us on, and we went on.
I was thrilled. I watched that show all the time.
Was your humor ever political in any way?
Not really.
No.
Not really. Well, don't forget, we made a name, I guess, for ourselves by being on the Ed Sullivan Show. And that was, as you might say in French, little milkadick. You know, it was middle of the road, white bread. So you weren't going to be on the cutting edge like Lenny Bruce or...
But you were doing that bit about, not that bit, but you had the setup that you were the Irish Catholic girl and you were married to the
I guess
Jewish
that
man.
was- that
and
was-
some parts of the country in the 50s and 60s, that was political.
I know, but as we go through
Yeah.
life, we try not to think of Protestant
Yeah.
people, you know.
But it did get political at one point.
gets so
we
serious.
did one day we did a sketch in which we call it the Supreme Sketch, in which a mother and a son are talking about getting married, and the punchline of the show was
The son was telling his mother he was getting married, and she was saying, "Fine, darling, tell me who you're marrying."
And I started going, she's part of a group, a singing group. She's
I
beautiful.
said, "Wonderful. What do
Yeah.
they call
And I
themselves?"
said the Supremes. And that was, and Sullivan put it on the air, and it was a tremendous response.
Big laugh.
Except that I started getting letters from people. One was a postcard saying, "We used to like you people until you started talking about the colored girls." And I actually went up to Ed Sullivan. I had some kind of a talk with him every once in a while.
I stayed away from him.
So I said to him, I said, you know, I got some mail on that, the stuff with the Supremes. He says, "You let me handle that."
We were mentioning your son, Ben Stiller,
Right.
famous actor, who is
Right.
coming to Broadway
Yes.
in the spring in The House of Blue Leaves.
That's what I understand. That Scott Rudin is going
Scott Rudin's
to bring
producing
that
it.
there.
You were in the original.
I was in the original. I was the original Bunny Flingus. And that first production had Harold Gould.
Oh,
who
wonderful.
I think
Bill
just
Atherton,
left it.
right.
Bill Atherton played Ronnie, who wants to blow up the Pope.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Filthy job, but somebody had to do it. And he played Ronnie, the son. And
How did the play go over back then?
it went over great. It was really ahead of its time
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the Pope, in point of fact, had not visited here, had not gone out of the confines of the Vatican. This is before they had the
Pope-mobile.
Pope-mobile. And so he was very prescient in writing this play,
Talk
John.
about John Guare.
Yeah.
John Guare, yeah.
And then Ben, I think, was 5 at the time. Then later, they did it again at Lincoln Center. And this time, John Mahoney played Artie Shaughnessy, and Ben played Ronnie,
That's right.
who wants to blow up the Pope.
Did you encourage Ben to get into the business? Did you want your son to be an
I
actor?
didn't.
You didn't. Why not?
No.
I don't think we actively did it. He did buy him a camera when he was.
Yeah, that was not getting in the business.
What do you think?
Just getting
Come
off
on,
my
come
back,
on.
you know.
Get real.
Gave him a Fuji. It says, here,
That's
use
getting in the business.
why
If you
didn't
get
you
an
want him?
8-year-old kid a camera.
No, I thought it was too tough a business. I mean, I hated the idea that rejection, which is maybe 75% of the time. And you know, I had a teacher who said to me, who used to filter out these students, Mr. Falk at Syracuse. He made it very difficult for people to go on with a scene if they weren't very good. He destroyed them. And then he explained to me one day why, because I asked him, why was he so that way? He says, because I don't want to see people who do not have the gumption or the talent to go in and sacrifice 10 years of their life when they are not ready for this kind of business.
Well, I disagree completely with everything Sawyer Falk taught you. I met him. He was a lovely man. But to do that, I think, is ridiculous.
Well, I didn't want that to go for Ben or Amy. I really
Listen,
didn't. But that didn't
does
make
a guy
any
who
difference.
has a rice paddy say, I don't want my son or daughter to go out in the rice fields? No, they're going to do what they want to do.
Well, but in the rice field, you don't have somebody saying, thank you very much.
No, you don't.
Next.
Oh, next.
And I
No,
love
but
pod.
I don't know.
I love pad
That
thai.
was a bad analogy that I gave. Trying to think.
Now, did you really want them to go into the business?
I thought it would be good, but I wasn't going to be a Sing Mama Rose type, you know.
But they did have connections. I mean, you know, Ben able to get his foot in casting doors because of your
But
success.
the biggest,
Actually, he was not doing too good in that department. And to this day, he will tell me that when he was going up for an audition for the House of Blue Leaves, the casting director, who shall remain nameless because I can't remember who the hell it was, who cares? She or he would not let him in. He said, Mom, it's the only time I've ever asked you something, but could you call John Guare and ask him, I just want to audition for Ronnie. And I did.
And he got the part in
And
the,
he
80,
did.
in the 80 revival.
He got the part of Ronnie in the
But one day
revival.
he
What
came-
year was that?
84, 85.
80-something, yeah.
But he did something which was a little bit, you know, I said, if he's going to do this kind of thing, how's he going to get used to the rejection and all the other stuff that comes? You know, so he started getting jobs. He was a busboy down at.
Well, let him get his own
at
interview with
Columbus's.
Susan and Michael. We're here today. Let's talk about us getting jobs. And my daughter's a wonderful actress, too. So there.
She's 80 still on.
Well, we will have Ben
Hey.
on Theater Talk when he opens on Broadway in
I don't
House of
care.
Blue
I'm
Leaves.
out for number one.
Maybe that's why he's a good actor, because he was always competing for attention in the house. I wonder what the Stiller Meara household was like. Are you all topping each other with jokes
Chaos.
and
A lot
one-liners
of years
all the
in
time?
therapy, thank you.
No, we lived on the west side, a 4 or 5 room apartment.
Oh,
and-
don't
and
do a whole
Amy-
geographical thing.
But Amy and Ben lived in that one room, and we did the living room where we did the routines and rehearsals, and they would be listening to all this stuff all the time, so they couldn't help but hear. And we had one sketch which was called the Hate Sketch, in which I said to Ann, I hate you. She says, you hate me. You don't know what hate is, the kind of hate I have for you. Hate, hate, hate. And in walks Amy, who was about 3 years old, and says, Mommy, Daddy, fight. I said, no, no, Mommy, Daddy, rehearse. A few weeks later, we had a terrible fight. Amy walks in and says, Mommy, Daddy, rehearse. We said, no, Mommy, Daddy, fight. And this is the atmosphere that those two
Jerry
kids...
loves telling that.
Yeah, this is what they were brought up with. And there was no getting away.
You
but
love telling that story.
Yeah,
don't
but
you?
Well, it's a
they
good
also,
story.
in Vegas, for instance, when we took them, they took them during summer vacation.
Oh, you're going to talk about when we played Vegas and the Milton Berle was playing with the Amin brothers.
Amen Brothers.
Amin brothers.
Egyptian acrobats.
Right. And Amy and Ben were in the swimming pool with the Amin kids, right?
No, they were with the Pips.
All that
At
stuff.
that time, Las Vegas was wide open. The girls were on the streets and the women were there. And
What do you mean? You're talking about hookers?
yes,
Okay.
if I may.
I didn't know you were up on that.
But the kids, we want to put them they had a nursery area for all the kids, actors and actresses. They put their kids into this place.
Oh, they had a camp.
Well, we had
No.
no problem with that because they would go over and play the slots. They were playing. What was that little place they played with penny slots?
Oh, the Circus.
Circus. They were playing slots. So and then they followed us wherever we went. We get on a game show. We're like tattletales, and they would sit in the audience, you know, and we would never get
Now,
anything
Ben had
right.
a different take on that. He was in tears because we lost.
We never got
He
the answers
really- he
right.
was a
you see.
kid.
And he says, Dad, Mom, how the
How
hell
could
could
you not
know?
know?
They were so miserable and unhappy because we didn't
He
win
said,
for
it's a
them.
game show. And he said, but you lost.
It was humiliating.
Now, Jerry,
Yeah.
when you were in Hurlyburly.
He was. Yes.
I was in it for a year.
Yes,
I
and
stayed
I
to
saw
the
you.
end. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
I went through a number of different cast changes. I went from Bill Hurt to Frank Langella playing the lead character.
He played with all of them.
Yeah, I tell you the truth. I never thought I'd work again. And that's why I stayed on, where the cast kept changing. There were 23 different people
Yeah.
at one time I counted. So I found myself addicted to the show, connected to the show.
What was your part? You were the
I played Artie.
writer, the old
Artie
writer.
was the
Yes.
hack writer
That's
who
right.
was trying to who was trying to suck up to the two guys, Chris.
He brings Cynthia Nixon
I
up as a
remember, yeah.
gift
yeah,
to them.
Yeah, it was a horrible kind of a
I
character.
played with her. She was my Juliet. I was the nurse.
That's right.
But I don't know if you want to know the whole story, but
No, we don't.
Well, ahead, you
Well,
tell me.
Susan,
What
it's
do you
your
want?
show.
I'd love to hear the story. That's why I asked.
All right, I'm going to tell you the
She
story.
knows.
Mike Nichols cast me, and at the same time, David Mamet was doing that other show that won the whatever it is. I got cast in two shows at the same time.
American Buffalo, was it?
The one where the guys are the real estate people, whatever.
Oh, Glengarry Glen Ross.
Glengarry. So they both wanted me, but I had to read for Glengarry, or Mike said, you got the part. I said, I'll take the guy who gives me the part.
I
don't
would have
wanna-
done that, except Mike never cast me in anything.
And then as I start reading the play, which goes on for hours, the David Ray play, and
long.
I didn't understand what the hell it was all about. I started realizing this character was a real Misa person. Artie was a scumbag, to use the expression. A guy who would bring a 16-year-old
Bottom
girl,
feeder.
a 16-year-old child to his buddies. And I found at one point when we were in Chicago at the trying it out, that I was having troubles with the part. And I didn't know what it was. I couldn't remember lines. Came into New York, up here on the west side, and I was blowing lines. And I realized that what was happening after a while, because I said, I'm going to get kicked out of this play, he's going to fire me, that I hated this character so much and I didn't understand who this guy was. And I had to make some sort of a connection between myself and Artie. And I said to myself, finally, I said, you know what you are? You're playing yourself up there instead of playing Artie. If you got into Artie, you would be playing the character. So when I found the groove, I became the most popular character on that stage of all these other weirdos. And on weekends, Ron Silver said, well, this is Jerry's, they used to call it Jerry's show.
It's because people our age were in the audience.
The women loved the idea that this was a scoundrel of a person, a Misakite, as we said in the other shows. And I also felt it was an anti-Semitic character, that the guy was portrayed as a Jew. And that really got me to the point where I said, I went on stage one night and says, Mike's going to fire me. But he didn't. He hung in. Very interesting.
Did you ever have a part like that you really had trouble getting it because it was so different from who you are?
Gee, that's a deep question. I'm trying to think. I did the play.
Anna Christie, what was going on there?
I loved that because I loved Natasha. I loved her very much.
Natasha
This was the terrific roundabout revival with Natasha Richardson, Liam Neeson, Rip Torn, and you.
Yes,
it's
that's
the one
right.
where Liam and Natasha got together, I believe.
That's right, and I was such a schmuck, I didn't even know they
Don't
were
say
making
schmuck
out.
on
I said
television.
it already, so forget
Women
it.
don't say words
Wait,
like
you
that.
didn't?
Oh,
you
look
didn't-
at him.
You didn't see the sparks between Liam and Natasha then?
We're all self-centered actors. I mean, it's, she would be upset, and she would have crying times, and I would hold her. I would hold Natasha because her marriage at the time was falling apart.
Right.
Anyway, I was very happy they were together and that the other marriage didn't work out. It was over, so I was glad. And I was at the wedding. I don't know why you weren't there. You were invited.
Well, you were like the Judge Judy of that show, weren't you, in a way?
What do you mean I was the Judge Judy?
You settled arguments and relationships that things were going on.
Are you serious?
That's the way that Judge Judy wasn't around at that
So,
time.
she was the
She
Judge
was
Judy of Anna
around.
And
Christie?
she was the one that the mother courage,
Yeah,
mother
yeah.
superior, really, in a way.
No, I wasn't. You see, Jerry puts me on a pedestal of some
Well,
crap.
thank goodness.
Well, I know,
pedestal's
Susan,
nice.
you got to get a grip on life. I'm telling you, Susan.
I wanted to ask you, though, you wrote a play that is one of my favorite plays of all time called Afterplay.
Thank you.
That was
thank you.
done in New York in the early 90s, mid-90s?
I think so.
For those people who haven't seen the play, and I'm using this
Right.
moment to advocate a revival of Afterplay in New York, because
Please,
it's a wonderful
please
play.
have a revival.
What was Afterplay about, and what was in
It
your
was
mind when you were
about
writing it?
two dear couples,
Yeah.
one from the West Coast, who were in town visiting their East Coast friends, having dinner and seeing a play. And there's a big, big snowstorm in New York, and they have a cab driver who gives them trouble, we hear, when they come on stage. And
More than trouble, they crash.
they have a crash. They have a crash, and they come on to this restaurant. And while they're there, they're talking about. I can't remember what I wrote. I mean, it's.
Well, I love
it's
that because they're
stuff.
talking about the play, but then it becomes about their
They're
lives.
talking about
two
the
couples.
play they saw, and then it becomes personal about their lives. And during the events, another couple that is in the restaurant they come in touch with. And this couple had just lost a son to that terrible disease, AIDS.
Yeah.
And out of that meeting, those people, comes a thing.
Where
And
did
then-
that play? I'm sorry.
and
Where did
then-
that play come out of from you, though? I was always curious about that. What,
Well, I thought of me in every character, really. I thought of, there was Renee, and that was Barbara Barry, and then there was
But without
Terry,
giving- yeah.
and that was Rue McClanahan, and Merwin Goldsmith, and
But what made you sit down to write that play? What was the germ that set you to writing that particular play? Do you remember? You know, one day you didn't have the play, and then you sat down and.
I
it was,
know.
it was such a sharply observed look at.
I wish I had some
Well, I'll
smart
tell you
answer
what
to
I think,
give you,
see,
but and let me tell you also, was Larry Keith was in that play.
But you left out the end of the play. We find out that they're all dead. All the characters in the play are dead.
Well, some people take it that way, and other people don't.
They're dead. You
I was
wrote-
sitting backstage. Yeah, I was sitting in the audience because I was like a total, my baby, my play. You know, I
But
was
you didn't
really
give it away. You didn't. You
No,
realized.
I know. But there was husband and wife sitting, and I was listening to them, and there was no intermission. It was 90 minutes, and she's yelling at the husband, saying, he says, what's going on? And she's saying, they're dead. Don't they get it? They're dead. Oh,
Well, you know, you can.
I have created a monster.
But answering or try to answer your question. I think Anne has been consumed.
David
with death.
Saint directed, and he used to do that imitation all the time. They're dead.
You were going to say something serious about your wife.
Oh, I would,
yeah.
if I may.
Go ahead. Who's going to stop you?
I think that Anne's, you know, coming from her background, in which people don't really die, but they go on to the next level. It's Catholicism, you know.
The Aborigines in New Zealand feel that way. I go along with them.
But I think this was
the dream-walking people.
Yeah, but I think this was a way of keeping death away from people's, by putting them into this pleasant.
So does the Kabbalah.
Into this, yes, in this environment, you know, a little club that they come to, and suddenly they're exchanging their entire life is pouring out in front of us, and you're listening to it, and you're saying, where's this going, if any place? Well, at the end, there's a hint that they're not alive anymore. And there's something mysterious and beautiful about that sort of feeling that the audience starts to find that as the play goes along.
It's great when they find it for themselves, if that's what they find.
Were you the first person to read the play? You showed it to him when you...
I never read the play.
Why not?
Never read
Because I was stupid. I mean, I really was so busy with my own life.
He's got his own life.
I was doing What's Wrong with This Picture, and Ann said, I'm writing this play. She's going away at it. And then she said to me, I'd like you to be the lead character in the play. I said, well, I can't go out of this play. I'm on Broadway.
He's on Broadway in Donald Margulies' play.
This is building up not a very nice relationship between a husband and wife, even if they're married.
Yes, you touched on something, though, I do want to ask you about. When you were doing What's Wrong with This Picture, you're writing the play, and you said you're self-absorbed actors. How have you kept a marriage of egomaniacs together?
30 years of therapy.
I don't think it was ego involved.
Therapy. I'm being dead serious. He won't cop to that, but I'm telling you.
Well,
Therapy kept us together.
Well, you know,
also, we were tied financially, emotionally.
Yeah.
We had kinder.
Well, we brought in the first thing, children. It kept us together. I mean, they always say that's like a big
Don't lay it
joke.
on them.
No, I don't lay it on them. One day, Ann said we were working this review in Chicago, and it was very long hours and tough times. And she said, you know, I got to get out of this show. I says, what do you mean? I want to get pregnant. I says, what, you're kidding? No. She says, if we don't get a child, he says, the marriage is over. And sure enough, 5 months later, Ann was out to here, and they kicked us out of the show because she can't do that anymore. And then we went home.
Well, I was already 32.
We had, when I say kicked us out of the show, that very gently. They said to us, you'll come back someday. You'll play Mr. Kelly's. The owner, Oscar, said that. And
we did. We played Mr. Kelly.
Twice. And then Amy came into the picture. Now that's how the thing kept going. Only because Ann said it was over.
And then when the kids leave, though, you kept going together as well. You know, a lot of marriages break up when the kids leave the house.
Well, we stopped doing the act.
You're right.
Because I said, you want to have this marriage, I can't do this act anymore because also the business has changed. You know, we're not going to go and play where every night is New Year's Eve, that place in Milwaukee. He was getting very hot as an actor. He was playing on Seinfeld.
Once we stopped doing the act, I started getting work, which was
He
nice.
stood in your way all those
Yeah,
years.
I did the
I
Ritz,
stood in his way.
and other things, and it was fun to be on the big street. You know, that was really that was where it's at. But at the end of, like at Hurlyburly at night, the actors didn't want to go home, so we went up to this place up on 8th Avenue, this bar. And it was Bill Hurt, myself, and Ron Silver.
And Chris, wasn't we?
Chris
Forgot to
Walken,
mention Chris.
Chris Walken. We'd sit and talk for 2 in the morning. And it was, your whole life was now the play. And I started to feel part of something that I never had felt part of when we were married. It was just Ann and myself. So this was part of another world. But I never fooled around.
That's key too. And you could say the same, I trust?
Yes, I can say the same, but you should have fooled around. You should have.
Well,
Sorry, Susan.
I advocate for a revival of Afterplay. Anne Meara's terrific
You're very
play. It's a wonderful
kind. I
play.
thank you, Michael.
And I know you don't need any help because, you know, you were the big time and all that sort of thing.
They're running me, whatever it is. It's been wonderful what's happening these last
And we
days.
wish your son Ben Stiller good luck in the spring in the House of Blue Leaves.
Yeah. Well, he'll come on here.
He'll come on and
maybe.
talk
Yeah.
about what it's like to.
Yes.
Well, he'll give his version.
He'll tell you
Yeah.
the hell he and his sister grew up with.
So meanwhile, go to www.stillerandmeara.com.
You are so
You don't need
sweet.
the WWs. You just say
Well,
Still.
let me just
Make
do
it
it because
easy.
that's the way I learned it. www.stillerandmeara.com.
And you can see your web series and also old clips of the Ed Sullivan
Yeah, they have
thing
old
and the
Sullivan
wonderful
clips.
archive. Okay, so
Thank you.
And
I
Meara-
can't thank you enough, Susan and Mike.
Thank
we
you.
can't thank
Well,
you.
thank you,
enough.
Anne Meara, Jerry Stiller. You're terrific
you.
guests.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for coming with us on Theater Talk.
Thank
You know what?
you.
You should have a show of your own. I happen to be an insomniac. I can't sleep. And I turn on the television set, and what do I see? I see a guy there. He's got it in front of him.
Infomercial.
That's what it is. He's got an onion.
This
and
is
then
aimed at you, sucker.
He's got a kind of a thing. He puts it into some kind of a thing, and he's got a chopper, and he goes start chopping it up, chop, 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 and he starts to make the onion into nothing.
What does this have to do with 2010?
I like this stuff. It kind of gets to me, and his eyes get teared up, and he says, "I'll tell you something."
Because
You
he's
get-
chopping an onion,
and
his
you
eyes get teared
yes,
up.
and his fingers don't get caught in any of these things.
We don't know. They never show
I
the
always have a
fingers.
problem when I'm chopping up onions. I always am in a dangerous area. But anyway, he's chopping his stuff up, and he says, if you get this in the next 10 minutes, it's $20.
And
I'll
you
tell
send
what,
in
call
and you get it.
Call it in 5 minutes, you get $15. Then he says, well,
2010
tell
is
you what,
over. Let's
we'll-
wrap it up.
I ordered 2.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Alan S. Gordon Foundation, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.